Ribbit! Froggy here. Hey guys, I'm back, and this time with a special edition of the Poker Journal. I was lucky to be invited by the Large Card Club to play on their live stream at the lowest stakes game that they offer, which is Live 1-3, $500 max buy it. This is the biggest stakes that I've ever played in my life, and all the players here were playing wide and aggressive. It's gonna get crazy. But before we get into some hands, I do want to take a second to thank the Lodge Card Club for inviting me onto their live stream. It's nice that they give regs a chance like me to get a chance to play on their live stream. It was a great experience. Thank you, and I would love to come back on in the future. But now that that's done, let's get into some hands. All right, here we're getting into my first notable hand. So the straddle is on to 24 already. It's a 1, 3, 6, 12, 24. I looked at a pocket nines, so I standardly raise 3x. It gets all the way around to Cowboy Tony, and he's in, I believe, the first straddle of 6. Now, funnily enough, Cowboy Tony thinks about it for a little bit and lays it down. It's very shocking because it was just a 3x raise of all the straddles. It gets down to Tuna, and Tuna jams on me. And so the context is, this is about like 19 minutes into the stream, and every single time I've raised, I've gotten 3-betted on, and that's why my stack is so whittled to 227, is because I originally had 500 every time I bet I got 3-bet. So I finally made my stand with pocket nines here. I'm clearly worried this is the biggest pot I've played so far the night. I'll look into the camera for support. And yep, Jack comes. But wait, the turn! And now I have the set, bitch. And his fucking 2 pair is no good. And the river comes, brick. And I take it. The frog takes it. All right, let's move on to the second hand. While they're dealing out the hand, I thought I'd actually explain some of the things going on in the game. So the first thing is there was always a straddle of $6, and many times 12 and 24. And so while this is a 1-3 game and the stacks are big, they're actually much smaller than they appear to be just due to how big the blinds are because of all the straddles. So here we are. We have Cowboy Tony raising a 9-6 suited from the hijack. I call it 6-5 suited from the big blind. It's a very wide, splashy game. I came here to be wide and splashy. It was my first time on stream. I knew I wanted to be a wide, fun player to make it fun for the stream and also to have fun myself. All right, so the flop comes out. Jack 8-2 with 2 clubs on the board. So I'm loving that flop. That feels good to me, but I checked 5-way pot. Rez with ace-3 offsuit decides to bet into this. Not sure why. I think we're all kind of doing silly things this game, to be honest. I guess he has the ace of clubs, but I just don't think that's valuable in a multi-way pot. Camzilla flops a set, so he likes that. And he decides to 3-bet to 220. And now I have a tough spot. I'm smiling because I'm unsure what to do. I don't have the flush draw, and I was thinking I could jam here to deny him equity, and possibly get some fold equity myself. But I realized that if he's already 3-betting, he's going all in. I was gonna fold here. I should have folded. I was between 2 different people. Someone could have a better club draw than me, but I called. I'm not getting a good price, and I could easily be all in off this pot. So I definitely made a misplay here, but I was misplaying all over the place. This is meant to be a wide, fun game, and so that's how I played. Ace-3 over here is thinking for a bit, but I'm confident he will lay it down, so we'll just skip past that. And then, so the turn comes. A 4, and Camzilla just jams immediately. And I sit there and think about this for only a short amount of time before folding, but as you can see, I only needed to put in 400 to win $1,050. I was getting about the right odds to call, and I chose not to. This is a great example of how I still don't really know what the hell I'm doing. In terms of pot odds, I just don't actively think about it enough. Whereas if I took the time to actually think about the pot odds that I was getting there, I'd actually realize that I should have just called there. But instead I chose to play safe, just fold my hand, which was definitely the poor play. But yeah, still a terrible player. All right, let's get into hand number 3. So I'm in the cutoff with 10-7 of clubs,
and I raise it up to 35. So there's always a straddle, so these raises are pretty standard for this game. Modelo Papi wakes up with King Queen offsuit. He 3-bets it up to 80. Cowboy Tony comes along with Ace Jack offsuit, and he calls. So I've been getting 3-bet every single time I raised, and this game was very wide, very splashy, all ends constantly. So I felt it was okay to call this 3-bet here, given that the ranges are pretty wide. So I flop middle pair. There is the board is two-tone. Modelo Papi leads out for 75, and Cowboy Tony is going to think about it for a bit, but he's eventually going to lay it down. I have middle pair here, and these guys play incredibly wide, and they tend to have very silly cards in their range, like 2-4. They just have so much of that, and so when I see that I have middle pair, and I only have 281 behind, and the pot's about 300, I thought a pot size bet on the flop was a great exploit against my opponent, and he calls immediately, because I had a feeling that if he had any cards like Ace King, King Queen, Ace Jack, any 2-over cards, that he'd be the type to call it here because he thinks they're good. So I knew that if I hit a pair, I should just jam and get it in good against him, because I knew he'd call with a hand like this. So while this is not a good play against someone who's playing more balanced, against my opponent, I think I made a good exploit here, and I want to show that off. And so we go to a turn. It's a brick. I guess it does open up flush possibilities for him. But it bricks out. My 7 holds. And this finally gets me to spin up a stack, which I start using later in the night. And this is when I start going a little bit crazy. I celebrate to the camera. All right, let's move on to the next hand. So Cowboy Tony is going to decide to limp in for $6 with 10-9 offsuit. It's going to fold to Tuna in the small blind. He looks down at Ace King. He says, that's a good hand. I'm going to raise it to 40. I look down from the straddle with Ace 8 offsuit. How crazy and wide everybody's been playing. Ace 8 is basically Ace King to me, so I'm obviously going to call a raise here. The flop comes out, a dream for my hand, 8-7-7, because I have top pair. And because it's a paired board, it's less likely that either of them have a 7. Also, Tuna wouldn't really have a 7 that he's raising with. Maybe Cowboy Tony would. And Tuna decides to check. I check. And Cowboy Tony bets out for 75, and Tuna calls. And at this point, with all the dead money that's out there, I have top pair. I'm pretty confident neither of them have a 7. And I see a flush and straight draw possibilities. There's a lot of draws out here, and I have probably what is the best hand most of the time. So I decided I need a jam right now to deny all these draws equity. And because of how crazy all my opponents have been playing, I think a lot of my opponents are actually not going to fold overcards on this kind of board, because it's not likely that I'm going to have a 7 is what they're thinking, and they're thinking I'm just jamming to just try to steal the pot, because that's how crazy everybody's been playing, when in reality I actually just have top pair here. So Tuna actually thinks about it for a while, but he's going to make the call. So I'm really glad that I jammed. One, to deny equity to the person with the draw, but the other to get someone to call with just 2 overcards here, and get it in good against them. So Tuna calls, which is amazing for me, and we'll just skip ahead to the run out. And so the turn comes a 6 that actually would have gave Cowboy Tony the straight, which is why the all-in was really helpful there. And the 2 bricks out, and I take it with a pair of 8s. All right, this is the last notable hand I played. I actually ended up not playing another notable hand for about 3 or 4 hours in the stream. I won a bunch of small plots. I lost a bunch of small plots. I was playing wild and very crazy. At some point, I got knocked down a peg, just losing a bunch of $100 pots here and there, and I lost a lot of my winnings. And so I started knitting up and just playing defensive. And I got my stack back up to like about 7, 8, 900. This is the last hand of the night. I put a $25 straddle out there, so I'm the last straddle, and Billy calls. Rez calls. Modelo Papi calls. Cowboy Tony folds. How can he fold 4-3? Josh looks down. Josh is going to put in the call. It's the last hand of the night. We're all kind of keeping it friendly. Tuna folds. Camzilla calls. And I have 10-3 suited. Come on. I'm obviously going to call. I was thinking about just jamming here, to kind of end it off like that, but I decided to just check it. We have a flop 6 ways. Flop comes out 6, 9, 7 with 2 clubs. I have a flush draw, and I have a gut shot. So that's good enough for me, and I bet 10. So I've been betting crazily, and it doesn't really capture that because I didn't show all those little tiny pots, but there's a lot of small pots that I didn't want to go through for the footage, where I was playing very crazily, betting small amounts, betting crazy amounts, and I was just trying to like mess with people and have fun and be crazy. I bet 10 there, almost in a way to induce, but just to kind of have fun. Well, Della Poppy goes off and he bets 175. I was completely expecting this from him. He always kind of just bets really crazy when I bet small. So it seemed normal to me. It was about pot sized. I have a gut shot and a flush draw. I'm calling here. Rez thinks about it for a bit too. He has a pair of sixes and he decides to come along. Pretty big pot for pretty hands. And the turn comes an 8, giving me the straight, and I'm pretty confident I'm good here. I checked because my opponents are going crazy at this point, and I thought I should just let them do their thing. Well, Della Poppy checks because I think he's getting suspicious of me. 8 comes on the river, not great if someone has a set, but I have nothing better to do. I bet 100. So I bet very small, and again, it was kind of just to mess with my opponents. I was playing around. It was the last hand of the night. I thought I could maybe get an extra 100, but this is also kind of why it's beneficial to bet small. My opponent here was tilted at this point because I think he lost a pot before. And he decides to jam when I bet 100, and he just has a pair of sixes. I snap call, I show the straight, I scoop a giant pot, $961 right at the end here, and I'm just feeling great. That was an amazing session. My first time. I celebrate to the crowd. I say goodbye to everybody. This was a great time. I really love this experience. I was grateful for the lodge for letting me come on. I had a lot of fun. I only played with one buy-in. I never had to buy in again. I left up. I played wide and crazy. You can see the results here. I was the second biggest winner. I also had the second highest VPIP at 50%. So I played very aggressive, very wide, very splashy, but I ended up getting lucky and getting rewarded for it. This was a great experience again. I really liked it. It was the highest stakes I've ever played out of my life. I always min-buy for 100, so buying in for 500 was very intimidating for me. I was happy to have a big stack through the middle of it because that allowed me to feel comfortable being more splashy. And once I started getting lower, I had to play more nitty because I didn't really want to like burn off $500 buy-ins. But I think it's back to live 1-2 for me now. These big stakes are a bit crazy for me, and I definitely couldn't handle the swings day to day. But it was a great experience, and I really loved it. And I think it was also awesome to just see what my opponents had in situations, and it allows me to better analyze like how to play in the future. But yeah, overall, great experience, great everything. Thank you, Lodge Card Club. All right, so let's talk about my live bankroll and its progress. So from starting off from last week, my bankroll was $7,311, and after the results of this last week, I am now up $27. Yeah, that's right. It was pretty much a break-even week. The 1-3 game boosted me up a lot, but every live 1-2 session I played, I lost. So they both evened out. So I broke even. Let's talk online results. So my online results for this week were good. So in terms of currency, I won $2.51. It's a nice win. I played 5,091 hands. It's most hands I ever played in a week. And I did so kind of casually. I was just really enjoying playing the last couple days. So I've just been putting a lot of hours in the last couple days, and it adds up. And I put in 10 hours. So yeah, this was really great. This was like a pretty big online week I had. I had like my biggest session ever where I won $9.18. I also had my longest session ever, 3 hours. So I just put in a lot of hours this week. I was just genuinely enjoying it. I really enjoy online. I like the skill of it. I also just feel like I'm flexing my pre-flop muscles that I've been studying for this last week of, so I really wanted to start using it. But I've really been enjoying online. Looking forward to playing some more. All right, one last thing before I go. So I want to talk about what I'm going to be studying going forward. So I've been studying pre-flop, and I decided it's time to move on. I got what I wanted out of this session of studying pre-flop, and I'm going to return to it in the future as I am with all topics in poker because it's a constant learning process. But I got what I wanted out of pre-flop studying for now, and so I want to move on. And what I'm going to be moving on to is 100 Essential Tips to Master No Limit Hold'em by Jonathan Little. Jonathan Little was the first poker YouTube educational content that I watched, and he started advertising his book that he was writing. I like these simple kind of top 10 tip books. They're simple to read. They're not too complex. I don't really read much, so it's easier for me. And I thought if I read 14 tips a day, 14 times 7, that'll mean that I get through the entire book in the next week. I don't think I've read a book in a week in my life for a long time, or I don't think I've read a book in a long time anyway. So I think just reading a book would be good for me. I think also reading something that's digestible, this will be nice. I don't think I'm going to get anything too insightful from this, but I do think that I'm going to get some pieces of nuggets of information that I think will be beneficial to me, and so I'm looking forward to that. But that's what I'll be doing with studying. But that's pretty much it for me. I had a great week. I'm really happy to have been on the Lodge live stream. But now back to regular programming where I just play Live 1-2 and play more online. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Froggy!